Somebody who's here tuxedo.
I was just gonna see how.
I didn't know that.
Two chairs to scoot over a little bit. I just don't want to
Same
block the
here.
camera.
I did.
Include your. And you can just pull your chair over. Yeah, great, thank you. Yeah.
Is everybody in here property owners and adjacent property owners?
They're not all adjacent, but they.
Is there no room in the overflow? I won't have. I'm standing.
They can't, it's where they get it. They get subsidized.
It's good.
I got such a good, they just handed me that, I printed these off.
John, is, be careful what you wish for.
Are you a property owner or adjacent property owner? If this is the overflow, I'm saving this. Property owners that will be affected, property owners.
Give me 1 second. So I can,
Is there any property owners out here? In the area?
Oh, that'll work.
Should be good. Do I need to stop their video?
No. Busy? Very. Yes.
Your wife said she quit because she had to keep you in mind, is what she told me.
That's fair.
I just want to wait till they have everything worked out, so let's start.
Yes, sir. Are you a resident within 200 feet or a property owner of that area?
I'm running for commissioner and they said I ought to be in your meeting.
Okay, if you could please sit in the overflow, that'd be great.
Pardon?
If you could sit in the overflow, I'm trying to reserve this for property owners of the affected area and people within 200 feet.
I was the only guy in here.
No, you're good to go. I don't mean to come off like that. I'm just trying to prioritize, that's all.
I understand.
Yes, ma'am.
We are not, I am not within 200 feet, but I'm on that road, just about a quarter of a mile from where the development is. We're in Shining Mountain Estates.
Did you get a letter?
Well, this is not about Shining Mountain.
Yes, if you could sit in the overflow too, in case other property owners come. I apologize. Thank you very much.
It's not due respect. You're friendly. Thanks, Mike.
Yeah, right.
We're within 200 feet, because we're adjacent to
Oh, yeah.
it. So we can say, we're immediately adjacent.
You're good.
Within 200 feet.
It's 100 feet from our neighborhood.
Please.
Thank you. Come sit by you. We're immediately.
Yeah.
Don't let my brother be in there.
That's right.
So we don't have eyes on the outer room.
Let me see if they stop there.
Yeah, we should have that.
Yes. Did you get this?
Would you mind grabbing the list of attendees? I'd like to just go through that list like we did last
Check them
time.
off. That's what we're going.
Yeah, well, just so instead of having everybody say their name,
Oh, there you
go through it.
Good idea.
You own property there, or you're within 200 feet of it?
You can't see us, so.
If you could send the overflow so we can reserve this for the property.
They told me to come in.
See,
Art.
Here's one still alive.
no, you could just,
A line?
I don't know why we can see them.
yes, ma'am, are you the affected property owner?
Property owner and second filing.
Okay, if you could sit in the overflow. This is reserved for the property owners who will be affected by the rezoning and the owners within 200 feet.
I am an owner of lot 18 in second filing, and this does pertain to me.
Second file. Adams is second, is in the 6 blocks?
Yes.
No. Or Adams.
No, actually, no, I live in second filing. It's just south of the county building and the tennis court. That was considered second filing.
Well, is there still a line here?
Recognition of visitors down to give people a chance to finish signing in. So we'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. If everyone will stand for the pledge of allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Chairman Patterson. Here. Mr. Winkie. Mr. Van Doren.
Here.
Mr. Lunn.
Here.
Mr. Patterson.
Here.
And Mr. Fulton.
Present.
Before we do recognition of visitors, and how I'd like to do that is just read off the list of people that are here. We'll go ahead and do approval of minutes. Has everybody had a chance to read the minutes from the last meeting? Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. How's the line out there?
It's crazy. Let me see if I can look.
Real close to it. No. Gotta be close to that.
Vestibule is full and I think they're kind of.
Okay.
There's.
Since I don't think anybody's here to talk about the Vivienda Parquet, if it's okay, I will go ahead and we'll address that old business and then we can do recognition of visitors.
Yes.
Hopefully it'll be all signed in by then. So item A of old business is discuss creating a new commercial district for Vivienda Parquet. You want to explain that a little bit?
Yeah, so as talked. We can shut the door so there's no echo. We do have 2 seats here, so if you'd like, please sit down.
Thank you.
It's me. Okay, so I talked about before, originally there was a PUD at Vivienda Parquet. So the old organizers of the PUD disbanded sometime in the early 2000s. And therefore there kind of just went up in smoke. It was all supposed to be residential. Slowly, commercial buildings were put there. And what we've kind of done so far is address this by taking it into the folds of the town and getting away, keeping the same business signatures and residential signatures on the lots. But just instead of on the map, you seeing it as a PUD, we just turned it to red for residential and blue for commercial. So this is we couldn't name it highway commercial nor core commercial because it's not on highway, not in the core of town. So therefore, we just named it commercial district 1. If you please look at all of the uses for it. On the first page, we have 10.2.3 use and as well as the description of the zone. I did add, since we talked about last time, everything that we needed. So was, instead of non-conforming uses, I put in pre-existing building in their uses. Also added the dance halls, the strip malls, sporting goods stores, brewing distilleries, and medical facilities. So this does not disbar any business that's been there before and allows for more opportunities in this commercial center. So I have not, I'm probably gonna hold this off from rezoning until the Shadow Ridge rezoning is done with, and as well as this one, so there's no confusion, right? So all we really need is to approve this, and I can hold off on to it till these other rezoning disputes are finished.
Anyone have any questions or comments or anything?
That's a good idea. Important piece there.
But you wanna move on it to the board today?
No, we'd have to have the public hearing, and, notify property owners and whatnot, sort of like we're doing right now with the 6 blocks. So what I really, I don't even know, we might just want to, hold off on this and bring it up for next month, or maybe we just bring it up in the next couple of months. So it won't be on the agenda, and once these 2 rezoning, disputes are dealt with, then we bring it back up and notify the owners, and once it gets passed, if it gets passed, we'll bring it to the board.
Probably September.
Yeah, we're looking at September, maybe October, November, right?
So you just want to table this till September?
Yes, sir.
And just to clarify, it's not like we're taking any rights away from anybody that already exists there. It's just that there's just some gray area with what was originally planned to be versus what it is.
We need a motion on the table.
Yeah, so would anyone like to make a motion to table this?
I'll move we table this till September. I'll second it.
Motion's been made and second to table this, discussing creating a new commercial district for Vivienda Parquet until September. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Okay. I'm gonna see if there's still people signing, just bring what you can. Okay, okay.
People that are here.
Nobody say anything.
Out of it.
Normally with recognition of visitors, we have everyone state their name and their physical address, but since there's so many people here, I think it's better just to run through this list of names and then this will be put in the record. So I'm just gonna go through everyone that has signed this, this form. Dan Cool, 325 East Main, Kevin Ferreira, 809 Hermit Road. I apologize if I mutilate anyone's name. Manny Santellin, 809 Hermit Road. Sal Stabler, 37 Powell. Circle. Marilyn Hennessy, 333 Mission Drive. Barry Keene, P.O. Box 835. Art Nordike, 57798 Highway 69. Fred Hernandez, 50 Granada Court. Debbie Underwood, 221.
Change that address, please. It should be 810 East Fifth.
What name was that?
Debbie Underwood.
810 East Fifth.
That's correct.
Robert Beltry, 509 Powell. Denise Mackey, 1244 Ute. Kevin Mackey, 1244 Ute. Charles Bogle, 2362 Black Fawn. Donna Vogelsong, 1101 San Isabel. Johnny Winston, 350 Knolltop. Julie Alleman, 1411 Lone Tree. C.R. Clausen, 110 South Third. Mike Nunes, 8 Leah Lane. Catherine Rogers, 305 South Second. Joy Vickers, 601 4th Street. Justin Hutton, 756 County Road 325. Rock Kanda, 404 5th Street. Laura Seats, 303 South Second. Becky Bruns, there's not a physical address for that. Dennis Bruns, 140 Sundeck Drive. Manny Fornacier, 309 Dry Creek Drive. Karen Mitty, 123 Sundeck Drive. Jill Kaminsky, 805 South 5th. R.A. and a name I can't read, 123 Sundeck Drive. Wilsma, 535. Sangre Drive, I think. Debbie Wilsma, 535 Sangre Drive. Dean Sharp, 110 North Adams. Holly Ray, 407 South 5th. Dwayne Couch, 1336 Lone Tree. Catherine Brenchley, 112 Alvarado. Paul Vogelsong, 1101 San Isabel. Ben Livesley, 1065 7th Street. Twyla Giroux, 1100 County Road 160. Vera Diaz, 919 Main Street. Elliot Johnson with the Wet Mountain Tribune. Freeman Miller, Sunset Ranch / Valley Feeds. Scott Unger, 215 South 6th. Mary Zawacki, 129 Sundeck. George May, 404 South 2nd. Lloyd Conwell, 279 Road 182M. Laura Dollarhide, 47 Granada. Doug and Joanne Prazak, 36 Kildare. Barbie and Patrick Henry, 40 St. Andrews. Nadine Peterson, 312 South 4th. Claudia Henning, 409 South 5th. Jerry Peters, 409 South 5th. Charles Yago, 310 South 5th. Merle Yoder, 57965 State Highway 69. Kelly Smith, 7011 County Road 328. Brad Hartbauer, 401 South 4th. Veronica Nicholson, 1880 Ute Mesa Trail. Paul Schmidt, 112. I don't know, I can't read that. Brock Flynn, 705 Shining Mountain Road. Luke Hooks, 719 number 2 South Street. Betsy Taylor, 3877 County Road 182. Audrey Gliszka, 840 Coronado Road. If any names were said incorrectly, I apologize. You can stop and talk to the clerk and make sure your name is correct for the minutes if you like to do that at the end of this meeting. All right, so a new business, item A is public hearing consideration of recommending to the Board of Trustees the possible rezoning of blocks 17 and 18, 19 and 20, 33 and 34, and town-owned lots to multifamily district. This is a public hearing. regarding rezoning blocks 17 and 18, 19 and 20, 33 and 34, governed by Land Use Development Code, Section Title 10. The hearing is a quasi judicial matter, and the Board of Trustees and the Planning Commission is not acting as a legislative body, but as a judiciary in this matter. Decisions will be based on the evidence presented at the hearing as it applies to Land Use Development Code, and such decisions will not be persuaded by popular opinion. As such, the Board of Trustees will only consider the evidence in the record of the hearing, including the public comment by interested parties. Why that's relevant, and just to kind of explain to everyone how this works, is the Planning Commission makes recommendations to the Board of Trustees. Planning Commission is not a decision-making body. All we are doing is making the recommendations, whether it's a positive recommendation or a negative recommendation. That is our role here today. So public opinion, discussion by this board at this time, that will help make a decision whether it's to, yes, take this forward to the trustees, or say, we don't agree with it, and then that information will be taken to the trustees, and they are able to do what they want with that information. Before we hand this over to Caleb, who is town manager, I wanted to say a couple things, and I know that Paul did as well. Especially, I think there's some misinformation out there. These things happen. What Caleb, or what's being discussed here today, comes from Proposition 123, which is being implemented by DOLA, which is to help get affordable housing in communities. And DOLA is offering low-income loans and grant money to help make this happen. People that are able to apply for this money are nonprofits, community land trusts, private entities, and local governments. Now, there is a fast track for local governments. The town is not in the business, nor have they ever been, of developing land. We would not be putting up apartments or condos or anything like that. That would be up to a developer to do. What we're wanting to, if I understand correctly, what we'd be looking at trying to use some of this available money, possibly help extend water lines and sewer lines out south, so that there could be building out there where there has been no, you can't build out there right now, as many of you that are property owners out there know, because we can't get water and sewer out there. The water district can't bring water and sewer out there for a host of reasons. So that is what I wanted to say. I just wanted to make it clear to everyone that the town is not in the business of providing housing for anyone. We're not in the business of developing. We're in the business of zoning. And right now that land out there is all zoned single family.
Thank you, Christy. I want to start out by, just to reaffirm what Christy just said. There is misinformation in the public sphere, I think, on Facebook and other places, about what we talked about at yesterday's workshop. The second thing I want to say is this is a work in process. We have not settled on any specific plan. We are working through it to see what is best for the community. We know affordable housing is a need. We don't know how much affordable housing we need. We will be doing a study. We won't be doing it. A professional firm will be studying not only Westcliff, but Silvercliff and the county to determine the need for affordable housing. I see some realtors in the room. They may could express their experience with people not being able to find something they can afford to live in. So we understand that. We understand the workforce needs that we have. I see signs all over the town, including my business, work help wanted, and they don't get filled. Those jobs don't get filled. So I just want to say that this is a working process, number one. Number two, we want to involve the people certainly in those 6 blocks who might be impacted by this or will be impacted by this. We want to hear from all of you. It's important to me as mayor, and it's important to the board members as well, to be able to hear and listen to what you're saying. So no decision has been made at this juncture. I just want to say that. And so you're all welcome to speak, and Christie will govern that. You have a 3-minute limit. And I hope we don't try to beat a dead horse. If a point has been made, it's been made. And you don't need to make it over and over again, because time is, we got about 60 people in the room. If everybody at 3 minutes, that's a long time. So I would just ask that you respect what other people have said. And I've said it, there's no need to say it again. So, Christine, thank you.
Caleb?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. To kind of elaborate, this all started with Proposition 123, like she said, and what kind of funds were available through this big grant fund that the state was giving out. I kind of looked at Westcliff and what we needed, where we could expand if all, and where we could provide housing. And really, the most simple answer was these 6 blocks. Right now, they lack the current infrastructure, water and sewer, that would need to be brought to these lots. They haven't been done before, nor do I think they ever will be done without some intervention through the state and through the local government. So I went through this, and I also looked at grant criteria. With certain grants, you have certain criteria to be able to be more competitive for the grant. A few of these are use of vacant public-owned land, subsidize and reduce local government fees, density bonus for housing needs, promote sub-meter and utility charge for affordable uses and affordable housing, on and on and on. So really what the state was pushing for this grant in order to get this was density. So that's why we kind of see the density requirements on this. Now, like Paul said, these are just suggestive. And of course, I do believe that this will get a haircut, and I do have suggestions on the haircut or the trimming down of these lots and what they would look like. Now, if you guys would like to see what they kind of would look like, I did hand out papers. If you guys are in that in the back, please look around for others that might have the papers. If you're in this room, please look for people that do have the papers. Planning Commission, I did put it on your guys' desk. Currently in the town, there already is a 3-story apartment, and both towns, one in Silver Cliff. So it's not like a 3-story apartment is unheard of, nor very controversial. So I just wanted to state that. It also shows a kind of what they could look like. So sorry about that. So I'm just peek ahead in the room. So that's kind of the premise of this. Now, Planning Commission, I'd like you, if you may, to turn to the multifamily housing district description. That should be on page 39 and 112 of your packets. The town on lots, currently there is 45-foot height, maximum height. I would suggest that we put it down to 35 feet, which would mean 3 stories, as well as lot blocks 33 and 34 at 3 stories. Blocks 20 and 19, a maximum of 30 feet, and 17 and 18, a maximum of 25 feet. It also says that block 17 and 18 are the tiny homes. Now, they don't have to be that as well. As we look through this and adjust, we can turn it into the idea was kind of a 3-story to 2-story to 1-story to kind of have a tiered construction. So the views would be protected for the people living there and the adjacent property owners as well. So what I have for 17 and 18 does not have to stay, and we can work on it. We can work on it a bit. So that's kind of the deal.
Caleb's laid this out. He's presented these diagrams, and this is in, I believe, Salida, is it not?
Yes, a few of those photos were through a developer called Fading West.
So we haven't even decided on whether we want a three-story apartment complex. I think the need is gonna govern what we say about what gets built, or what we're recommending, or how we zone. And so, that data is yet to come. I'm not trying to put the cart before the horse, but, we can do a lot of other things before we get the data, so that's kind of where we are.
Well, and I feel that I don't like seeing these pictures because it would be up to a developer to bring a plan to the town if they wanted to do this. It's not the town that would be developing this property. We're just talking about this, changing the zoning. Right now, we have height restrictions on residential and on commercial, so that's already in place. If we change the zone to multifamily, the rules are already in place for that. And I feel that showing these pictures just like adds to the fears maybe that people are having right now about this. And I don't think it's appropriate for us to be showing that. personally.
Yes, agreed. That's by no means exactly what's gonna be up there. Those are just kind of visuals to help others understand. What we probably should discuss is probably number 4 in the multifamily district, area heights and standards. The town lots we have here, I gave a suggestion for 35 feet, which would mean 3 stories. 33 blocks, 33 and 34, as well as being 35 feet. 2019 at 30, 17 and 18 at 25.
Can you move us through those, like in terms of east to west from the?
Yes.
That would be helpful.
Yeah, so the town lots are, and it should show it on that paper as well. It should be the dark area that I handed out. So if you guys need, go ahead and just hand those paper rounds to get a better look at it. We covered in blue, but it might be black and white. Off to the right, and if you're looking at a colored map that Paul is pointing to, it's the white owned lots. Those are the closest to the highway, and those are the town owned lots. I want to stress that those will be the only proposition lots that the town has, and the town can work with the developer to put up, or those lots only. So that is what it means on the zoning for the town owned lots. Block 33 and 34 are the 2 red blocks off to the left-hand side of the town owned lots. So that you can see that the town owns half of some of those lots, the rest are privately owned. So off to the right. The middle 2 lots are blocks 20 and 19. Those are on the structure, no, hold on, let me get to the definition of that. Those lots are meant to be for townhomes, apartments to not exceed 2 stories.
Point that out again, Paul.
Well, here, right here, toilet number, it's a center block, 20 and 19 and 20. These center blocks here, these lots here. You got that there?
And those will be for what?
2019 shall be townhomes and apartments not to exceed 2 stories. Block 17 and 18 on the far left, meaning west, shall be reserved. I have this for tiny home, veteran housing, and houses that can be built on half a lot. So that is what it currently is at the.
That's gonna be for low income housing, correct?
No, again, the only areas that are for the low income housing are the town lots to the far right, or to the far east, adjacent to the highway.
30 and 30, 33 and 34.
Yes, the town owns half of 1 block, as well as 2 triangle slips off to the right. If you guys can see that. On that visual I gave you, it should just show one big blob there that I darkened to.
And you wanna make 3 stories there
Yes,
on the highway?
correct.
Isn't that the view? Isn't that the reason for the 80 acres? Isn't it, you know?
I don't think it's the town's business, personally, I don't think it's the town's business to protect views. I think if the town is going to provide services that can save.
Funds that you're talking about with this, through DOLA with this Proposition 123, does it state that it has to be affordable housing, or does it just say that there has to be providing housing?
No, so that's the whole thing behind the proposition funds is that they are affordable housing. Now,
What's the definition of affordable housing?
I was, who defines affordable housing?
yeah, so the state does. There are certain percentage of AMIs. It was up to, let me just go ahead and pull this out.
What's AMI?
Median income, area median income.
Thank you. The last housing needs assessment had different, in 2019, excuse me, so probably second to last, had different income brackets. One was $23,000 per year. The other was $31,000 per year, 45,000 being middle. Again, this is done in 2019. And then the workforce housing bracket was 55,000 a year. So there's different income brackets, and those are based off certain percentages, AMIs. So
then if we got grant money through this program, then anybody who lived out there would be subject to income certifications and verifications?
yeah, so yes and no. It depends if the property is going to be deed restricted. If there is a deed restriction, if there's a restriction on the deed that limits the amount it could sell for or be rented for, then they would be available for proposition funds. So that much is clear. Primarily, it's going to be the town owned lots. The town could have taken this, or I could have looked at this when I zoned it and just looked at the town owned lots and put water and sewer in just the town owned lots and said, okay, that would be what we're talking about today. But I took a new approach or a different approach because those entire 6 blocks have never seen water and sewer service in their lifetime. I don't think if we put water and sewer in the town owned lots, then all of a sudden, I don't think the property owners would go and branch off from that because they haven't done it before. This is a way for the town to not only encompass its town owned lots, that would be affordable houses, but also encompass the 6 blocks as well in this grant. Now, like I said, there is a checklist. It is Energy and Mineral Impact Advisory Fund, whereas now best practices. That is what that paper is. And it goes over a few checklists allowing for or kind of pushing for higher density houses. So that's why you see the higher density area here was to look more favorably on that grant. I think the farther away we go from a higher density, and now I'm not saying it needs to, be skyscrapers and whatnot, but the farther we go away from it, the less likelihood of getting this grant to provide water and sewer infrastructure for this area could be affected.
So this grant, what you're asking for would just be to extend the lines to be able to get water and sewer out to that, I'm just gonna say that south end of town.
Right.
All right, and after that would happen, and so the town would be potentially using this DOLA money to help pay for that, right? Tell me if
Yes.
I'm right about this. And then beyond that, the town would be maybe listing its 6 lots so that a developer could come in or it's not lots, 6 blocks, so that a developer could come in and make a proposal?
No, so the town would list, I guess you could say list, or really just put out in the open that, hey, these are town-owned lots, they're available for proposition funds. And the town-owned lots could be affordable houses. Now, it depends up to the property owners of the rest of whether or not they wanted to make affordable or not. That's their business, not the town's business. Simply, what we're really doing for the property owners is that there's nothing there before. Now all of a sudden there's water and sewer infrastructure, and as well as now it's going to be. But the caveat is it has to be kind of a higher density housing with this area. The farther away you go for higher density, the more our chances get hurt for applying for this grant. DOLA has not come out and said, hey, this is the sweet spot for this grant. You gotta, do this. They're really looking for innovative ways to apply for the innovative zoning for these grants. So
Why would a developer want to develop on property that they don't own? that the town owns.
Yeah, so that is actually not unheard of, and it's happening all over the state. Why they would want to is because there's money in it for them. There's money in it for them. The state usually subsidizes these areas, these housing projects. There's housing projects going over Buena Vista, Salida, Breckenridge. I could pull that up if I could, but all the way to, areas in southern Colorado, northern Colorado, eastern slope. There's areas in Colorado Springs that affordable housing is being put up. So this is going all up over the state. So it's definitely not unheard of for this. I think it looks more presentable. If we go to developer and say, hey, here's this land, we want affordable housing, nothing's on it. They're gonna be like, well, how can we make affordable housing if nothing's on it? Because we gotta cover the cost to put the infrastructure. This is kind of appealing, I think more appealing to a developer if we put the infrastructure in there.
So I don't mean to put you on the spot, Charles, but I'm gonna put you on the spot. We're very casually talking right now about extending water mains and sewer mains, and we're very casually talking about high density, and that we can get grant money to do that, but where does this fall into Round Mountain's plans? And I know you guys have a little bit of a situation right now handling what you have, so do you care to speak about this?
Speaking informally for Round Mountain, our current policy changed several years ago where developers have to basically finance the infrastructure expansion. And that's been an issue. We've had efforts before to bring water and sanitation to this area. And its cost is significant. There is advantages where to a developer, if they don't have to if the town can, through this grant process, bring the infrastructure in, actually it's less of an expense to the developer. And also, like Kip says, there's precedents, and I know in Salida, there's a foundation up there that owns property and maintains the property, and other folks build on them. And it saves an expense of the property, which is generally a whole lot more expensive than what we experience in West Cliff and Silver Cliffs.
But I just want, and then Caleb and then Greg, if all of a sudden there's lines extended and let's say someone comes in and says, okay, we're gonna put 50 whatever's up. There's gonna be 50 more families and 100 more toilets, let's figure 2 toilets each. How does that impact you guys, or does it right now?
Right now, with our plans for our wastewater, the trial system that we're currently proposing to prove our concept for wastewater will accommodate the roughly 700 customers that we've got in the district now. We will readily have the growth capability to actually, we've got contingencies that we could probably something that none of us would really care to have, but to carry a system that would support 3 times the population that we've got in the district now.
Yeah, so I want to kind of elaborate on that. I've actually went to Round Mountain before with this grant. Obviously, we've talked with the Round Mountain Board, and there's a lot of benefits for this grant. One is these houses are not going to be put up right away. One, if the town acts as a developer, it's going to save costs if somebody else wanted to try to come and put these in. But Round Mountain gets money off these tap fees. So these houses aren't going to be built right away. So initially what will happen is that this infrastructure will be in there. People will buy tap fees and that will fund money for Round Mountain for these lots to be able to, I don't know where Round Mountain puts its money, but for it to help fund a new plant. So it's not like as soon as we put this up, there's going to be hundreds of houses and the water and sewer plant is going to break down all of a sudden. What's going to happen is infrastructure will go in, people will buy taps after, it could take more than 10 years. And then after 10 years, it's fully built out or whatever it might be. So initially what it is an investment for the town and for Round Mountain.
Let me explain. Round Mountain is a nonprofit special district. We're not in a growth. We're here to serve the towns, the district. And what you decide to do that is our situation of coping with the adequate support, both water and wastewater. We've got an old system. Parts of our system are upwards of 100 years old. And I think anybody that's been watching our progress the last few years, we've addressed a number of issues that relate to cost. And we have a very small contribution as far as our maintenance from the tax base. We get nominally $50,000 a year from property taxes there. So our principal revenue that we put back into the system is from tap fees and use such like that. So don't give us a profit-making deal. Ours is a matter of being responsible management to support the district. And we have approvingly worked towards our budget and our planning for long-term growth to compensate for water. So we've got plenty of water. That's not a problem. Our long-term problem is that much of our old system is an old system, but that's not different from a lot of water and wastewater facilities, especially in the rural part of the state.
Great.
You asked my question.
Oh, okay. So any board discussion?
I want to just comment, Christie, real quick. The woman in the back, right next to you, Craig, you asked about, who is it? Holly? Holly, yeah. Glasses are not so good at this age. You mentioned a 3-story apartment building on the highway.
Yes.
That's not something the board has approved yet. And, we've talked about it. But I think the sense of the board is we want to pay attention to what people are saying and feeling about the views. They're very important to us as well. So
Right.
that's not firm. Okay.
It's like the vision of the whole valley floor.
Yes.
And the whole concept, when you come in, you see this big open area and then you're just all jammed up with these apartments right here, But, and then there's also I'm just curious about tap fees with, are they gonna go up? Because it's gonna be really expensive to run that lift stations and everything into that area. And it's different than it is running just regular through, regular water line through town. That's why it's not ever been done this way I understood it. So do tap fees go up for everybody?
Well, and that wouldn't be a question that we could answer. That would be a Round Mountain question. And I don't know how they structure their rates or anything, but I was under the understanding that this was kind of discussed in Round Mountain's last board meeting and it was tabled. Is that correct, Charles?
Yes.
So Round Mountain hasn't even, they're not.
Well,
They
we're addressing the request that Caleb gave us, which was for basically a monetary contribution towards the match fees. It doesn't change anything else that we're doing as it relates to tap fees, rates, or such like that.
And as far as I understand is that's partly what the grants would be for, is to be building that infrastructure out. So that really shouldn't affect the tap fees elsewhere.
Different deals.
Yeah.
Because by doing the funding that you're proposing, you're decreasing development costs, and that doesn't affect us as far as the actual buildings and such like that.
Well, excuse me, Charles, you sell water and sewer, don't you?
Yes.
Well, you have free infrastructure with going in, would yield revenue back to Round Mountain, assuming there's something built there. Right?
But like I say, we're not a profit-making
No, I
organization.
understand, but you need to make, you have to have money to do things, and, it seems like you don't have enough money, right?
Well, we think we're doing a better job for now and in the future than historically.
Well, I mean, you don't give water and sewer away, right?
No,
So
definitely.
this would, you're in the business, I'm very sorry. You're in the business to sell water and sewer.
Yeah.
So this should help your business. Whether you're a profit or not, it should help your business.
It's an obligation that has a cost with it, and there's a compensation. Yes, there'll be additional taps and such like that, but it works into, and this, I don't know what the total number of taps that you're proposing, but right now, we're supporting almost 700 taps in the district. And
I understand that.
it's incremental enlargement.
I was.
I have a question as it relates to the basic question of rezoning. Is there any obligations to those of us as landowners that's associated other than we would not sell and or develop for single-family housing, we would go multifamily? Are there any other obligations that go with that zoning change?
So then it's basically the question, if that gets rezoned to multifamily, but you bought out there with the understanding that it was single family, are you still able to put a single family home out on the lot that you own? So, do I get that right?
That's probably safe.
Okay, then I misunderstood. I'm glad that I
I
read.
mean, are there any fees, associated obligations other than the ultimate development would be for multifamily?
Like HOA fees or something like that?
You know, whatever,
Anything.
anything.
No, I mean, once the town, this is gonna come at no cost to the homeowners. The town, with the help from the state, will put in the infrastructure. And again, the only caveat to it, to get this grant, is the higher density. So what that looks like, we can discuss, and I'd actually like to get us back on track to discuss that.
I still come back to who defines high density. Like, what is there, does DOLA say high density equals what?
Again, I said there was no sweet spot, right?
Well, you said there's no sweet spot, but if DOLA says, well, in order to get this grant, we need to see X number of units and X amount of space, someone's setting that, because high density, for some people might think, okay, on 2 parcels, I'm gonna put a duplex, and that could be high density.
Yeah, so it actually does have, a duplex would, on that MHN, on the checklist, it does have middle multifamily, duplex, triplex, and other use by right and single-family residential zoning districts. So that is a checkbox. So that would be allowed through this grant, correct? So you're right on that. It's a lot of the different developments you see with these developers who are using proposition funds. They either are apartments or condos or townhomes. There's really not much in between. Well, that's not necessarily true. They do have housing options that are for single family housing, and that would be kind of what we'd see on the I think it's block 17 and 18 on the west side.
I know that this town and county and Silver Cliff also has received a fair amount of funding through DOLA over the years. And I think that in writing a grant, that they would be respectful and understanding of the things that are important, like what Holly's talking about, the views of the valley floor, and not necessarily, and respecting that while we want to have affordable housing here, we don't want to do it at the cost of detrimental what people have been fighting for in this valley for hundreds of years. So that's why I asked that question about, are they deciding what density is? Because, duplexes are a lot different. Multiple duplexes are a lot different than a 3-story apartment. complex.
Yeah, again, a 3-story apartment complex is nothing new in the Cliffs. I mean, Silver Cliff has a 3-story apartment complex. One, correct.
Talking about Silver Cliff and
Well,
you
it's
don't know
nothing
there's
new
a
for the
big
valley,
difference.
so I don't, personally, I don't think it's too much of a stress or stretch. Again, I'd like to, kind of go back to the zoning, and if the planning commission members have any suggestions on what they would like this to be, right? How many stories, setbacks, height limits, I think that's what we should kind of discuss.
I guess one question that might address this, I'm aware, and past experience with Silvercliff, they have a density per block or per acre or something that limits, that ends up being a real restriction as it comes to duplexes and stuff. Does Westcliff have such a density that kind of tends to soften or average things out?
I thought it was, and I gotta remember, it's like 12,650. Well, it's like,
Minimum lot size requirements?
yeah, for
12,500.
multifamily.
12,500 for multifamily. And the original, now, again, if you guys look at page 39 and 112, it gives you the minimum lot area for the town lots is 12,500, 33 blocks 33 and 34, 12,500 as well, 2019. See if I got that right, 6,250, so a regular size lot. And then on the 17 and 18, it'd be 3,125 as a minimum.
And that would be that you would have to have that many square feet to do what? How many units are you talking, like 12,560 square feet gets you what, a fourplex?
The town does not dictate how many units you can have on, it just says this is your minimum lot requirement. They need to be classified as multifamily. Usually multifamily is 4 units or more.
So it's.
I mean, some of the lots that are in this area we're talking are very small. I mean, they were originally set up for tents, if I remember correctly.
Lots are 25 by 125, and most property owners in there own 2 lots, which would be 50
Well,
lots.
I've got this 7 lots in a half an acre now.
And so, I mean, if you look at the plat, that's basically the lot size throughout Westcliff. Now, where I live, I have 2 lots, 50 by 125, as do my neighbors. So you have to really have 2 lots in today's environment. Nobody's building a house, well, it has to be about 15 feet wide because you have setbacks on each side.
Code says you have to
So,
have 2 lots.
Yeah, so you have to have at least 2 lots. And from, Charles, did you bring this up? That there's nobody owns more than 2 lots in that.
There's a limited number of property owners total, because I think it's 28 from memory. And none of the property owners own less than 2 lots. So
Are you talking out in that area?
Okay.
out in that area.
I think there's 2 different concepts here. One is the footprint of taken up by a building in the total square footage. I think there are footprint limitations, are there not? That you can only occupy with a building a certain percentage of the footprint or of the square footage. And then there's the density, which is the number of units that can be within that footprint. So you know, if you can cram 6 dwelling units into that same footprint, that's another regulation as to how many units you can have.
And that's basically what, as I understand, the grant is based on, is the higher density we can put on, the more likely or the more amount we'll get for that funding. And I don't think we're talking about putting in little sleeper cells to get that density. We're still talking about housing units and.
Christine. So, can I ask that?
Yeah, go
question,
ahead.
to Caleb, because this is kind of along the lines of what Kit said. So what, you guys are gonna do a study to see how much housing that's affordable for like our service people and people who work in town, how much is needed? What do you see as a proposal for the actual number? Because you put together, you've taken it away from 4 levels to 3 on the east side, and then you're just tearing it down. But multi-level, or high density could be, like you said, one level duplex. What do you have in mind for the number of homes or dwellings needed? 700, 1,000, 300?
Yeah, good question. And kind of a tricky one. I will say that the Custer County Housing Needs Assessment that came out in 2022, had a number of units needed today, was 30 to 35. So
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
So like
That
to
was
speak of,
low cost housing.
correct,
Total.
correct. That was
Yeah.
low cost housing on the lower income bracket, so they're more.
And it forecasted a need for like 50 more over the next 3 to 5 years.
Exactly.
let's just say 75 and keep high end.
let's just say 75. All right. So if you're talking about 3 levels on multiple lots that the town owns on the east side, that'd probably take care of the whole deal. But then if you're gonna make the current property owners in there, move from a single family to a multifamily, are we actually asking for too much? I mean,
Yeah.
are we gonna have too much? I don't really think in my business that I see that we need 500 or 300.
Yeah, so, and that's kind of again, that goes with the caveat of the grant. Now, the town can say, well, no, we don't want to make these multifamily, and we're gonna pull away from that. But then at the same time, those areas that would not be multifamily would not get that infrastructure. So that would be your caveat,
So
correct?
multifamily could be single level duplex.
It 100% can, and we just need to figure out what that's gonna look like in writing.
So what would that look like if we say single level duplex takes 2 lots?
Well, I disagree with the single level duplex. If we're gonna go in a minimum, I would definitely suggest 2 stories, at a minimum, especially
I
for
know
the
you
town.
disagree with it, but I like a single level duplex.
No
So
doubt.
how many lots are out there?
How
What are
many
we talking about?
Total lots, each block has 28 lots, 28 times 6, roughly.
What is that? I'm not that quick.
168.
168.
Times 2. Oh, no. 168 total lots divided by 2. If we just went with a duplex per 2 lots.
84.
Going back to Twyla's statement, 80 units?
About what?
75.
About 5.
Yeah.
80 units. Well, we talked yesterday about a 2-story apartment complex with 40 units on each floor. That's 80. Bang. So you don't need to go to a skyscraper, you don't need to go over 2 floors and so forth. So, I mean, obviously, this has to be, a developer, as Christie has mentioned many times, is gonna make that decision as to how they want to invest and make a return on
Yeah,
their
but the
investment.
town has to put the stipulation on it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. We would still have the final say in terms of, we don't have any architectural guidelines, but we could say that we don't want any 3-story apartment complexes if we wanted to. And, we could even put in place architectural guidelines. We've never done that. We've talked about it many times on the board. We've never put it down, and some people don't want it.
I'll argue against it.
So anyway, but we could say, we don't want any 3-story apartment complex. And then the developer might say, hey, wait a minute, that's the only way I can do this. So it's, you gotta feel your way through it, but.
And with what Caleb is, what he's wanting us to talk about right now is to address those things, like, because this is changing the zone, so we
Right.
can put the stipulation, like, nothing can be more than 2 stories tall, or, we can
Right.
put that on this discussion. That's what we're talking about right now. But a question I have is, so for all the folks that already own property out there that is zoned single family, and we're talking about changing that to multifamily. Okay, so now let's just say hypothetically, I own a couple lots out there. You just change it to multifamily. But now there's water and sewer out there, so this property that I've been sitting on for 20 years, whatever, I want to build a house out there. Now I'm not able to just build a house, I have to build a multi-family unit.
That was my next question, and that's exactly right. That's, you know, a residential area there. That's what it was supposed to be.
So what does that do to
And you've
me
limited-
that's been
you
a
know,
property?
You've limited me being able to build a single family dwelling out there.
But if you don't get the grant, you're limited to
But
building.
I don't care about the grant.
And she owns.
But then you won't get the services to, so you can't build out there anyway.
Well, before this
Time will
gets,
take care of itself, okay? I mean, West Cliff.
Time
not
takes
the
care
West
of time,
Cliff I-
yes, you're right.
No, West Cliff's not the West Cliff I grew up in. People are coming here. They are coming here. Ask Twyla. She's in the real estate business. I'm in the real estate business. And what I'm saying is, that's a nice place for single family residents out there. You've got a beautiful park right next to it. You got tennis courts, you got a pavilion. That is a really good spot to have a single family dwelling.
And what if?
And there's
I know
kids
of a better
playing in
place?
that park all the time. And to go further,
I know. of a better
affordable
place.
housing is not gonna bring, in my opinion, people in here that, I don't know how to say it.
well, okay, so let's,
Understand what I'm saying.
so let's move to, in this part of the room here, we have people that received the letter from Caleb because they're adjoining property owners to these parcels in question. So is there anybody in this room that would like to make a comment about anything? And please come to the podium and state your name. And you are allowed 3 minutes.
My name is Mary Zwacky. I am majority owner in Block 18 in City Filing. And first of all, I would like to ask Caleb, since blocks 17 and 18 are specified as tiny home building, and there is an offset of 5 feet, 4 feet on the side lots, which means that these homes have to be separated. That means that these are single family dwellings, and according to your description, we will not be eligible for the infrastructure. True or not?
Not true. So density, remember, what we've done is taken the regular size of the lot and cut it in half. Now, again, it does not have to be tiny homes, but what we've done is taken the regular size of the lot, we cut it in half, so there's your density.
So now they're
Okay.
25 by 50?
25 by 62 and a half.
So it's still a single family dwelling.
Yeah, but density, remember, so yes, single family, but higher density.
Speaking of two.
So if we have 2 on 1 lot, now this also excludes something like what they call patio homes that share a side lot, a side yard, or as Twyla says, duplexes. Is there any leeway on the tiny home?
Absolutely. Again, these are just, I put these out here for an idea.
If under the new lot structure, you have 4 lots, you're not being told you have to have 4 tiny homes. You're just saying you could have 4 tiny homes. We're not mandating that this is a tiny home.
Right, yeah, and what I'm getting at is if I only put 1 tiny home on 1 lot, then that excludes me from the infrastructure built out.
No, again, once this is rezoned, it is, if it's higher density or multifamily housing, it does not exclude you. You would be included in that grant.
And that infrastructure would be built out first. That's what we're looking to get the grant for, is to build the infrastructure and then allow.
Well, that brings up another question. Is this only going to be zoned multifamily? Because right now in the zoning rules, anything that is multifamily, you are prohibited from building a single family home. So
That's
there's a
not
little bit of-
necessarily true in the current code. This would be multifamily districts, so it would have its own zoning. So whatever zoning requirements you see for multifamily district or single family district, this would be separate from that. And you said, would you be required to have a multifamily house? If you look in the agenda packet, I don't know if you have it, so if you don't, I apologize. It does state lots 17 and 18. It does say single family, let me pull up that. 17, 18 shall be reserved for tiny homes, for veteran houses, and houses that can be built on half a lot. 3,125 square foot.
Yes, and I have the table here from the zoning page that says that multifamily, the R-MF zoning, single family, 1 up to 2 attached or detached dwellings is prohibited. So.
Were you reading from the town's current code?
The town's, yes, the town's zoning, this is the table of what is permitted and not permitted for each zoning area. So I just want to be clear about whether single family
We can
It's not
designate that as
prohibited.
independent, maybe not.
Okay.
Well, it says in description of the district, 17 and 18 could be single family, but it would be on currently half a lot. So again, you're looking at current code, what we have, we're bringing a new code to the table. Okay, that's the code that's under, that we're
Okay.
talking about.
So this would be separate zoning rules for this
For this area.
6 area.
That's correct.
Okay.
Go ahead, because I was figured 3 minutes are up, but there's been some discussions.
I might add that if you want to put a note together, email Caleb your specific questions.
Okay.
Give them back to him.
And just one other comment on the water and sewer. We did try to get water and sewer into that 6-block area. And I don't know how much, I don't know whether you've applied for the grants yet or not. But we were given an estimate of about 184,000 per block to build out the infrastructure. So, and that was 7 years ago.
Yeah, and I'd like to elaborate on that. That is the reason why this is being done. If we don't do it, I think it will never be done, just like it never has been done. I'll give you the total, the total exactly, and it won't be cheaper in the future. The total is actually $1.5 million. Obviously, the town will have a lot less match from that to make it up. So that's why I brought this forward, right? It's the plan for, good growth in the town. Again, I think we should probably go back to page 39, 112, and we should start discussing what these should be looking like. That's my suggestion.
I think I was taking public comment from people in this room that are adjoining homeowners out there, or property owners, I mean. So does anyone that is an adjoining in this room have any other comment that they'd like to make at this time?
I'll make a clarification because I was on the board when we talked about this several years ago. Round Mountain has changed its policy as far as infrastructure since then. That was the time when Round Mountain did the improvements at our expense. And now we've changed that, which is, I think, more typical of communities where the developers include those costs. And it's not got any cheaper in 7 years.
Sure. Right. Thanks, Charles. All right.
Ms. Patterson, you did this.
Yeah.
My name is Kit Shy and I own 3/4 of block 32. And my property was already rezoned since I had bought it. It's highway commercial. And I was under the impression, and have been thinking this in terms of when I was marketing my property as well, that the highway commercial would go all the way down the highway. It makes sense to me that that's what happens as a buffer to the residential area, because I don't want to see kids running out on the highway. I've seen an awful lot of very near accidents all the time on the highway. We do too. It's a tough spot right there, and I was under the impression that these half blocks at the town level and these partial blocks would end up being highway commercial at some point as well. That was the expansion direction. The residential behind it, multifamily may very well fit there. That might be a good idea for it. It does slow off that way, and it could have separation by topography and elevation on the highway itself. As far as water and sewer, there are 13 5-acre lots down here that already have water, ground mountain water and sewer, both. The water has been extended down Fifth Street all the way down to here.
No, sir. It stops at, it stops and then it picks back up. It does not go, it does,
Fire plug right there.
well, it does not go through the 6 blocks.
What's that?
It's south of the 6 blocks.
It goes down Fourth Street and winds through Shining Mountain.
No, that's not,
It's not.
I have a drawing right now.
I was out there yesterday tying in a fire plug, which is right there.
Correct. There's water down
That's
south.
what I said, there's water serving those 5 acres. Now, the sewer has to be lifted. Everybody down there has a grinder pump and they lift it and pump it into, the manhole that's at the end of my pump, is what that actually goes. So it has been extended that far. Gravity's always been the issue with sewer. And, so sewer, there's a lot more infrastructure to be done there. But water's down there and there's a 6-inch main which feeds those fire plugs, so they wouldn't have fire flow down there. So the water's there. Most people all bought taps. There's somebody at the very end that's actually not in the subdivision that has a water tap as well. Then there's all of these single family lots here that were platted and have never been developed, and it was the same reason, no water in the sewer. But there's one single owner in all of that. That's in Westcliff, strangely enough. This is all county. And that's a little piece that's in Westcliff right now. Yeah, that's inside Westcliff. And it was developed in 1969 prior to Senate Bill 35, which required that you have water and sewer to develop. You've got some water and sewer in your development as well.
We've got,
Water, no
there's
sewer.
water on it, but we have, 2 wells.
And 2 large septic systems. Right. So, I mean, there's been thought about extending it to the south, and some of it's already been done. I don't know what it would take. All those flows have to be calculated. There's a whole lot to do that. I don't have any problem myself with having some multifamily. Actually, Westcliff did away with 6 acres of multifamily that they had when the Adams addition was platted.
Right.
The bank was 3 acres of multifamily, and this lot up here was multifamily at 1.2, where the little amphitheater is supposed to go on the north side of Bluff Park. Now, where that multifamily went, I have no idea. It just disappeared. Somebody got a zone change, town decided to change it, whatever, but
We are hoping to look into that as well.
yeah, I know. The idea of not having any multifamily, developers in the past have been required to have multifamily.
I think, Kit, that might be in a flood zone.
No. Where the bank is?
No, that lot that is part of the bluff now,
It might be.
the
But-
one side with the park.
The flood zone was defined when we crossed Chloride Gulch and put a pipe in there and an overflow. The high water line has already been determined there. And it could be mitigated to be turned into multifamily as well. I don't know what happened to it, just all of a sudden we had no more multifamily. And developers were required at the time that they developed that to put in multifamily to satisfy the town's requirements. So it went from us not having any to developers providing it to the town eliminating it, and now we're back to wanting some multifamily again, so.
Shut ourselves off.
Makes sense, I agree, we need some multifamily, this is a pretty good spot for it. I don't necessarily think that the streets are gonna stay that way. If I was gonna develop that, I wouldn't even look at that lot configuration. I would vacate the alleys and the streets and have a complete design that matched it. I mean, but those are developer questions. You're just talking about the zoning for the use right now, right? That's where we're at. My input, highway commercial on the highway, multifamily behind it with a low profile.
Thanks, Kit. Okay, Caleb, you were wanting us to go to what page?
Yes, 39 of 112. Here we can talk about the multifamily district. And a description of units, designation of lots, building review, area height and standards. So we can actually kind of hash out what these are going to look like and what we should suggest to the board. And if we can, or if I may, I do think there is a case for affordable housing, right? Right now, obviously the housing needs assessment done in 2022 stated as much, but I've talked to business owners in Westcliff. The people that they do have can't afford to live here and they live out, and then they got to spend all this money to travel into work. businesses that are here, they have to save up for the winter to survive, or excuse me, save up for the summer to survive during the winter. While county's sitting there trying to, and nothing on that, but county's sitting here trying to bring just more people here in the winter itself. Well, I think it'd be an easier equation just to have more people play into the local economy, right? More people live there, more people will work here, more people will buy here. It would boost the local economy. So I wanted to just throw that in there a bit. I do think there is a case for it. I think this is a perfect place for it, considering it has not been developed, nor do I think it will be developed without some intervention.
That might be a perfect place, and I don't disagree with what you're saying, but we need to be respectful of the people that live here and that have strong opinions of, like, I understand what you're saying, that, hey, the town's not in the business of caring about your view, but that's not necessarily true. And I think that as responsible stewards of the community, which is what we're supposed to be on this board and on the Board of Trustees, we do have to pay attention to people saying, yeah, like, a lot of people have said they are okay with higher density, but this 2 and 3 and 4 stories is, can we make some kind of different arrangement with that, John?
Yeah, I just want to make a comment about if we did that property in highway commercial, we could, in the current zoning would allow 35-foot high buildings there. That could just be metal buildings, ugly metal buildings.
If it were made.
I have a 35-foot.
Your building is not ugly,
I have
but I'm saying it would be allowable. I could put a Butler building there, a metal building, and that whole area could be aligned like that. Where a 35-foot tall apartment building might be attractive with landscaping or landscaping. It's so, right now we can make that highway commercial and you'd have the same blocking of the view issues that you're talking about if we put an apartment. I like that for apartment buildings personally. It is adjacent to the highway. We can certainly fence it. And we can also put, it would be very nice to put landscaping in there. So you've got a row of trees and you can come into the town and see that. So, but I don't disagree. It's, highway commercial doesn't, if we have control over the private property development, but we have very little control.
Well, you could put a height restriction on your highway commercial too.
Yeah, you could.
If that's an issue.
But the case he's saying is that the current zoning allows for it. So what the 3 stories is nothing new.
But you just said that we would be creating a whole new district here. So if that's the case, then we could put a restriction if we wanted to turn it into, part of it into highway commercial, we could put a height restriction there if it's a whole new district. I mean, in one breath, you're telling me we're talking about a whole new district, and in the next breath, you're deferring to existing
And we don't have to worry about that because
codes.
there's no water there. If you guys pull water in there, then we have to worry about it. That's the point.
But I think the point is, we're kind of off track here. We're, a key part of getting this grant is getting an affordable housing element into that town-owned property. So if we don't have that, I don't see much chance of getting this grant and getting water and sewer service into this area.
There isn't a provision for high density commercial.
Yeah.
So then we're back to talking about residential, and then that comes back to where are we at here, Caleb, page 39.
Yes, all right. Description of the district. This district is designed to accommodate workforce housing, affordable housing, senior housing, veteran housing. That is, I will definitely be editing that for one. I probably will be putting this district is designed to accommodate workforce housing, affordable housing, senior housing, veteran housing, as well as multifamily housing at the end of that. The town of West Cliff recognizes its small footprint and is designing this district to allow for more housing and growth in the town. The zoning designation covers all lots south of Hafford Avenue. So that is the description of district. Before we move on to designation of lots, from that description, is there anything we'd like to change? I would suggest to the committee, excuse me, to the planning commission, that at the end of the first sentence, just add multifamily housing
May I ask a
to
question?
clear up any questions.
These pictures that you don't like, you know, there isn't anything, I mean, that's kind of like right there in Silver Cliff on the south of the dome. Those houses that went in there, they look like little, you know, yeah, well, you know, like Monopoly, you know, is what we kind of thought at first, but they're cute. And then there's the cute ones even south of them that are all in a row. Is that considered like high density?
Correct.
And then section 8 available?
Those are section 8. Yes, those are section 8.
So when you're saying affordable, are you talking that the builder is gonna have to be required to do section 8 also?
No, again, if you own your private lots, you don't have to put out affordable homes, right? The town's not saying you have to make these and they have to be affordable. The town is going to make affordable, property on its lots, or affordable buildings on its lots, but the rest can just be multifamily or higher density, like Shem.
But so those single families south of the dome
Yes,
are considered high density, one level. And they are individually.
higher density. I think that what is written now is in the zoning, which is half a block, is high density. Those ones that are now, I wouldn't necessarily say they're high density, but, you know, we can obviously, always change the lot sizes.
See what they're.
Exactly. I don't know what the lot size is. Thank you, Chris.
No.
I have a question from the audience here. Please come to the podium and state your name and,
So my name is Merle Yoder and I own the furniture store here in town. And I guess my question was, what type of people are we bringing in here? And the other question is, with the crowd of people that we have back here, are you guys looking to what people think about this? Are you open to listening to people's opinions, or are you trying to push it through and not keep in mind what our crowd out there and in here is feeling?
no, that we said at the beginning, I don't know if you're here yet, that we are definitely wanting to listen to people. The reason why we were inviting the people in this room to speak first is because these are the folks that actually join the lots in question. So once we get through what Caleb wants to talk about here, we definitely want to hear from people in the other room. Unfortunately, maybe next time we have this meeting, we should move it to the bowling alley so that everybody can kind of be in a room together, maybe. But we didn't anticipate, I don't think, this many folks to show up, and by the time we knew it was too late to post it, that we were moving the location. So, yeah, we definitely want to hear and hear from the people with the adjoining property and hear other people's opinions on this. And also address the misinformation that's out there as well.
If I could answer or speak on the first question. We're looking for people that can move here and afford to work here. If you can't afford to live here, you're not gonna try to work here. This goes to people that are basically working class people.
Is there any way to control that type of people coming in, or are we gonna see retired?
Well, just look at what things cost. There's a natural pressure on what things cost anyway. Even if we could call it affordable housing, housing is not affordable today. You have to be able to, I mean, this is gonna be really rude, but you have to be a certain quality of a person to be able to afford anything. So if that's what you're concerned about, I wouldn't.
I mean, I just don't want people sitting on our side streets begging and have people that are government supported living here that.
No, it's still gonna cost them money to live there. It's not free. We're not talking about government handout situation. And it's, I mean, what's the minimum cost of a house today? Well, in the area,
I don't know, probably 354.
minimum. The bare bones, nothing like these units that we were just talking about,
Those are three over there that they were selling.
so if we're talking about housing, unless it's the tiny homes, but a tiny home, somebody's still investing in their property. You're not talking about riffraff, you know, you're now in some of the apartment complexes, but you're still talking about people that the only reason they're gonna be here is so they can work. We need the working, people.
Merle, we talked earlier today and we absolutely, I told you, we want to hear from everybody. We want everybody's input. And, this plan is in it's a work in progress, as I said. But to tag on to what Chris was saying, everybody here who owns a house probably had a starter house someplace. And they went from that, and they got some equity in it and so forth. They sold it and they went on that. I look at the park homes up here in Silver Cliff. Those are 399 square feet. There's a bedroom, kind of a galley kitchen and a living room. People have bought those and they have improved them. They put decks on, they leave things for a car and so forth. Those things are selling for well over $100,000 now. So people live in them, they fix them up, they sell them to the next person. They take that money and so that's the whole idea with this whole thing about, we all got our foot in the door somehow in housing. That's not really too easy anymore for many, many people. We talked about incomes and so forth. I don't know what the average annual income is in West Cliff. I thought I read 40 grand someplace. But
That's what I last read was around 45.
So if you take that times two, that's 80,000. So people aren't able to afford housing, but then there are people who don't. So they're making less than that. But that's what our goal is to do. We aren't trying to attract people who want a free ride. That's not it at all.
Yeah, that was it, let me.
Yes.
Well, actually,
Just FYI is, this is not new. I've been sitting in this room now for 6 years, 7 years, and it's been coming about for quite a while. We've talked about it a lot. And, to your point about bringing in people, we have people here now. I mean, I have a little apartment that I rent, and you wouldn't believe how many people I could rent that to right now, obviously. So, and I'm also aware of other neighbors or communities around. I travel around the country a fair amount, and we're not the only ones. The key here, we're planning and zoning. Planning. So if we don't plan now, this is not going to happen. If this grant came to us this year, we'd be, the dirt's not going to move for probably, 3 years. Okay, so, but you have to do it now to get that dirt moved 3 years from now. And we all go to the restaurants, we all go to the Ace Hardware, everywhere or any business, clinic. It's very public about our sheriff's department. Deputy salaries had to go up just so we can get anybody to come talk to us. So to me, that's not planning 5 years ago. And when their town is finite, it's only a square mile from the kid, as a district surveyor. But this is the only piece of land that has available to have this discussion, okay? As far as I know, and I've been following it a little bit, but we've talked about affordable housing in the county for 5, 6, 7 years. What do we have? What have we seen? Nothing. I mean, there's making progress, but there's no dirt that's been turned that I'm aware of. Okay, so I just want to share that with you. We're not to track. I think we need to take care of the ones we have here to support the ones that are here. Okay, because we come and go, we're getting older. And so your kids, your kids and my grandson, if I'm a grandfather. And so, and if he wants to come here, and so we can get all over that, but that's the whole reason is we're planning and plan for the future, because the future is going to come, whether we're here or not. Right.
I just have a question. I've worked on 3 DOLA grants. And the 2 of them have been awarded, made the effort, but what happens, are there any strings attached to this infrastructure money? Do we have to provide a certain number of units? Maybe I get that, but do we have to offer them to certain people? Does the state provide us with a list of people that can come and do that? Right now in Denver, they're having an awful lot of influx of migrants who are being subsidized in their housing costs by the state and federal government. Do we have to accept a certain amount of that kind of clientele? Are there any of those kinds of strings attached to this?
Excellent questions.
As far as I understand, no. Who will be prioritized with this, and that's why it's important. I've been talking to Upper Area Arkansas Council of Governments, maybe to start a housing needs authority so they can vet the people coming into this area. But like Bob said, these are for the people who already live here. And that's what the premise will be on. The minimum units I think we needed was 66, 66 units needed, by like 2026 or something. But extensions can be given, obviously, if they see progress. So hopefully that answers your question.
No requirements on clientele and
No.
who provides the client.
No, it does not state that at all.
That's important. I think that's a concern.
I would very like to see you get that in writing from DOLA, because I don't trust what's.
Because we've had those grants.
The only thing that would.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's just been a lot of times over the years that we've gotten grants, or we went into a grant with the premise of one thing, and then it turned out that it was a little bit different.
An observation, I just sat in front of Brown Mountains from a double board 10 days ago. And I had done it several years ago, and the board is twice as big as it was. And we were pitching for a nominal amount for our wastewater facility. And it was quite unusual in that 2 of the board members gave unsolicited endorsements to what we were trying to do and stated that in front of the rest of the board. And talking to some of the board members afterwards, it was told that they had been given instructions. And DOLA, I think all of us they've been quite procedurally driven over the years. But they were told basically by the governor, think out of the box. And some of the alternatives that Round Mountains considered that helped this effort is definitely out of the box. Because they seem to be receptive to some different ideas. But I agree, you gotta read the small print.
All right, so Caleb, where are we?
Yes. So we just got done with description of this district, now designation of plots. Blocks 33 and 34 shall be apartments and condos as described in 10.16 definitions, shall not exceed 4 stories in height. So we'll stop there and see if we want to change it up. I would suggest making it not exceed 3 stories in height.
No.
Is there a height when you say 3 stories?
35 feet, usually average. Yes, ma'am. And it goes into that with area height standards, it gets deeper into it. These are just raw definitions of the lot.
I mean, you could have 3 stories if you sink it, or, it's in a basement or whatever.
Can I speak? Do I have to go to the podium? Because I just want to talk about this.
Okay, go ahead.
You don't have to let me.
No, you can't. I want there to be discussion.
Podium. So I would respectfully request that on these strips that Kit said, probably back whenever you were rezoning, it should be highway commercial. And you pointed out it could be 3 stories, I guess, or 35. I would request that you do limit that to 2 stories, at least at the maximum. Of course, I would prefer the duplexes or something like that. But then my question is, as far as water and landscaping, you said that you would really landscape it, make it look really good, and put your row of trees and all that kind of stuff. Well, that all takes water. And we don't have limitless water. We've all been on restrictions on water down through the years. So we might have water now, but we don't have limitless water. So I would request that you at least consider 2 stories and prefer 1. And yeah, we could have 3 stories now, but we don't have the water. You guys are gonna make it possible to have this. So I would just ask that whenever you do, if you do consider this special zoning, that you do consider that. And also consider who's gonna take care of the trees? Who's gonna take care of the landscaping on those apartments? Who's in charge of that? Are those for sale? What are gonna be the deed restrictions if they are sold? Who owns them, the town? The people that live in them? I definitely agree that we need houses that are affordable for people to live in. So I'm not against any of that, but just things to consider. The other thing is, what if there's a better location? And we'll talk about that later. So that's it.
That's a lot of land and a lot of,
It's massive. I agree.
all right, I'm very opposed to 3 and 4 stories. If, I know we're talking about changing from single family to multifamily, but in keeping with the feel of the community as a whole, where most all the houses are either 1 or 2 stories, even if it's multifamily, it could still be just 2 stories and not be as impactful as maybe looking at a 3 or 4 story structure. That's just my opinion.
I support that. Chris.
I would suggest, no, I have no vote. I would suggest 3 stories.
From a grant
Perspective, 100%. I think it's far more competitive than 2 stories. And if I would feel far more safe throwing, putting in 3 stories for this grant. And, I think that would be a far more competitive grant than 2 stories.
So I'm just curious why.
So I did talk to our Department of Local Affairs rep, maybe a couple weeks ago, and she really just kind of touched on, like you just said, thinking out of the box. Right now we're trying to, keep what we have always had, but that's not necessarily thinking out of the box as far as what our conversation is held. So that's why I think it would be important.
They think that if we're trying to develop affordable housing, you think there's a need for about 80. Clearly, we don't need to do a 3-story building unless you want to get all 80 in that building.
That's where the planning, Bob, you just touched on a bit ago, that's where the planning and zoning comes into effect. I think we only 73% of the homes and all the cliffs is single family. This is where planning comes into effect. All right, let's just say we build and put up 80, then a few years down the line, then now there's a more need, there's a bigger need, because we haven't planned thoroughly and we haven't planned correctly. So that's why I'm still gonna be suggesting 3 stories on lots 33, 34.
Excuse me, Christie. I'd like to know what you're talking about.
Could you please state your name and come to the podium?
I'm Debbie Underwood. I'd like to know what you're talking about, competitive.
Yeah, so grants are a competition. They have a certain amount of money in this fund. Now, it just depends how much people, put in for this round of grants. They have rounds, April for the EIF DOLA grant, April, August, and December. This round, there was 20 million for affordable housing projects, but each project can come up to $2 million, right? So 10 projects throughout the state. So that's pretty competitive as far as the grant goes. So that's what I mean by being competitive.
We're competing with other municipalities.
Yes.
Asking for the same grant.
We're basically bidding, but instead of with money, we're bidding with units of housing is our monetary or not monetary or.
Competitive advantage.
Or yes, it's our.
Well, they're gonna look at what's the biggest bang for their buck that they're giving out.
Yeah.
It's our money, it's all.
But
Our crowd just comes back.
It seems to me that if you talked about wanting to do a study, talking about wanting to do a needs assessment, I feel like we're jumping the gun talking about this now until we know what we need. And even if we know what we need, we can bump that, we'd be like, okay.
Well, there was one done in 2022, so I mean, I disagree with that. There's one done in 2022. I'm pushing for one now with all the counties to update it. So by the time we get this infrastructure and we have a new updated housing needs assessment, that more accurately reflects our needs. So it's not like there isn't a need now, and there hasn't been a report on it.
But you're saying if we get the infrastructure grant, which you say depends upon the number of units we're creating to be competitive, then we get the number about how many we need.
Mhm.
That's, as Christie says, that's the cart before the horse.
Again, that's where the competitiveness and the planning come into place.
Well, the question I have is, why can't we get the planning assessment done first, the assessment of what the need is done?
It is, yes, sir. Then I described it to the board, to yourself, we're going to be applying in August. Custer County already said yes, Red Cliff already said yes to collaboratively join together. And by the time we should expect it, 2025, around June or July. And then we'll still be in the planning phase of the infrastructure. So this is, in my opinion, this is, I think I've thought this out pretty well. And it allows for, good timing. But I would like to get back on track.
If I may, it's not only limited funds available, it's limited time. So doubling up our efforts to get things done is important. Since this is the only forum we can actually discuss this stuff, we need these meetings to discuss them, because we can't do it in private.
Exactly.
So this is not the cart before the horse. We have to run in tandem. Or we're not gonna do it.
And the big thing we have to remember too, it's not gonna happen overnight. Once the infrastructure's in, then we have something to present to whatever developer. We're gonna come in and then at the time, maybe there's not enough need for a 3-story building. But in the meantime, the other smaller ones, your lot, whoever owns lots in here can go ahead and do something.
Well, let's assume that we get the grant, we say, okay, it's gonna be 3 stories. We get the grant, then we do the study, we find out we don't need that. Can we change it back to 2 stories? Are we restricted in our zoning by DOLA in the future?
That would be a question to ask to JOLA, whether or not we're restricted. Correct. And we as a collaborative, the town, right?
Is it cast in stone? You can only put a 3-story building on that property. 10 years from now, we say, gosh, we would want it to be 6 stories. We need it. Who knows? I'm just playing devil's advocate.
Does the city of West Cliff have the matching funds for the DOLA grant?
Yes, ma'am. That's what scared people, and not a city. So,
We're trying.
and, yes, we do have the matching fund for this grant. Yes.
Yeah. Well, we kind of, but so we're to this part that's, right? Right, Caleb, or designation of lots? I'm against 4 stories. I'm against 3 stories. But I'm one person, so please know what the rest of you guys think, please.
I'm against 4 stories, but I'm fine with 3 stories.
Yeah, John's point of view. I'm against, I'll make myself clear, I support 2 and not 3.
Architectural design, or guidelines, if you will, or acceptance.
It does have that in number 3.
As long as it's not town-wide. Or architectural control.
I'm not so sure that stories is what's important. The topography out there lends itself to the possibility of garden level or walkout basement type thing. Right. Which means that you might want to be talking about a height and not the number of stories.
And again, it does get into height here, which is 35 feet in description. Right now, we're just going designation.
But that's where it's measured. if on one side it's 25 and on the back side it's 35 because of the slope, then, you know, you have to come up with some way of writing that formula. Some of the counties struggled with for many years. Another question comes to mind, if this is an infrastructure grant, which is essentially feasibility for all the things that are important, access included, you probably need to have some sort of a traffic study. Is that to be funded in this infrastructure? Because the highway department is not gonna let you access it on the platted roads there. You may be required to put in a frontage road to satisfy that. So there's issues there. And if Round Mountain is part of that infrastructure, why aren't they a partner in applying for this grant?
I am working on that. Trust me,
It seems to me as though there's more horsepower and bang for the buck in including them in the initial part of the process, right, Charles?
We started a number of years ago when growth started, when we were found, for lack of a better term. And I got with the previous Dolo manager and I said, none of us are smart enough to know, because our system is, talk about time response, we're talking about decades rather than short periods. And I talked to, that was our previous Dolo rep, and I said, you know, we're trying to figure out what do we need to plan for? And one of the things was, you know, nobody here is smart enough to figure out how much we need to be done. And she said, well, do you need a facility plan? And I said, I think we could call it that. Well, they found out there was an engineering company in Colorado Springs that's under contract to Dolo, which I found out week before last, they just extended. And we ended up getting this company that concentrates on water and wastewater, and to try to help us figure out what we needed to do and put some structure to it. And like I say, we are responsive, reactionary maybe, to what the towns choose to do as far as growth goes. And then there's an element of it that none of us control, that's as far as growth goes. And we're still a very economical community compared to almost anybody else. And part of the problem is, I think, we're getting people that have an excuse to go rural and realize that it's a lot cheaper to buy a house here than it is in any place else almost. But we've still got the same issue that people that we need here to support our businesses can't afford to live here.
So is that formal and official support? Is that what that, did you just say that?
I don't think that's what he said, but nice try.
Did you hear that, Christine? I heard that.
No, so we're still on designation of lots. The planning commission, as a majority, felt that 3 stories in height was appropriate.
I didn't agree with that.
No. Yeah, was acceptable. And that's for blocks 33 and 34. So then, blocks 20 and 19 says shall be townhomes and apartments not to exceed 2 stories. So do we want to keep that, or we want to knock that down to 1 more, since we just knocked 33 and 34 down to 2, 3.
I've got a comment and an idea. I don't think we're going to get to the point of a decision today. And I think our time would be best spent, the rest of our time, in hearing from the people in the back row.
That is probably a really good idea, because I agree with you that I don't think we're going to come to any sort of a resolution. So, so for the folks that are out in the other room right now, would anybody like to come forward and make a comment? I just need you to come through the door here, stand, well.
Just that one at a time.
Yeah, stand at the podium, state your name and your comment, please.
Who's first? We're taking one at a time.
Go with the chair.
Feedback.
My name is Bob Meady.
I'm the name you couldn't read.
Sorry.
Okay, happens all the time. My comments are, one, I've heard Salida brought up a couple of times here tonight. Salida went through the same thing. We gotta build houses to bring in people to work in our community and stay here. They did that. They put those houses out by the water sewage plant, bunch of tiny homes out there. Kind of nice, but they're certainly not in the midst of town. It also didn't solve their problem. They still need people that they haven't got. Okay, so there are other things at play that need to be addressed to bring people in. And people who are gonna stay and work. My second question is, what does a tap cost at Round Mountain right now?
$30,000 for one.
$30,000. So, an affordable house gets built and you throw 30,000 on top of that
I'm working on that.
to a low income person to buy a home, in town. Now, and who are these people? I mean, I'm a retiree. Would a retiree move here? Are they gonna work in a store? I mean, are those the people who can afford the mortgage to buy the house? I mean, there's a lot of questions here. And there's been a lot of discussion around height requirements. And I'm with you, 2 stories is plenty. But until you know what the problem is, you're throwing money at something that may or may not even exist. You know you need people to come, but is housing the only issue? I was a school principal for more years than I like to imagine. We had the same issue in my little town in northern Vermont. What brought people in, because we surveyed people who moved, was not the work, it was the school. Because if you want families to move here, families with kids, you better provide a really good education and be able to prove it. So, you know, Salida is not Westcliff, thank God. But, you know, they didn't solve their problem with tiny houses. Okay? Thank you.
There's somewhere where affordable.
I'd like to address that.
Well, you could address it. Bob just has a comment.
I'd like to make a comment on, thank you for that information.
Yeah.
And I agree with you, but some of these folks in this room have heard me say this because Mayor Salida told me he was a friend and a customer.
Mhm.
Okay, for this like 5 years ago.
Mhm.
Salida, you know, he said they should have done what they had done within the last 5 years, 8 years before. In other words, the cattle were out of the field before somebody figured out the gate was open because they didn't plan. And then you'll.
But my point there is though that they did plan eventually.
Eventually, but that's a cattle.
But it didn't solve the problem.
This bill.
So the problem is more than just that, right? Yeah.
I agree with that. That's why we're trying to plan now because
It's always a good way, it's always a good thing to know where you're going, so you know when you get there.
we're planning.
Yeah.
And if I may address part of that too,
Yeah.
I don't think we're the planning and
Mhm.
commission.
Yep.
We can only deal with one part of the solution.
Yep.
We understand that it's not the solution.
Yep.
It's just a component, but we have to deal with that component.
Agreed, but you are part of the government of this town.
We are, absolutely.
Where's the other governments? How do you connect? How do you expand? I mean, that cooperation is not a bad thing. Thank you.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Luke Hooks. I own 2 businesses in town. I've been in the valley for nearly 20 years. My family's been in the valley on and off since 1952. I know change is hard, so a lot of people are against a lot of that. But we're hurting for workers, essentially. I know a lot of the business owners here, we're currently losing 2 restaurants here soon. Those employees are looking for work now. They probably have found it already because they knew it was coming. That hasn't changed anything. There's still help signs everywhere. So that's 2 full staffs that are looking for work and have probably found it, like I said. But there's still people looking for employees. So we don't have that number up here. And something like Caleb's project, I think, will help the community. I'm just making statements. I don't really have questions because I've been listening intently and I've been talking to Caleb for a while about this. The 3-story thing I think is a good idea as a max because 1, it will help us get the grant. It will make us look good for that grant. I know a lot of people are worried about the views and yes, that is a big part of why we live up here. I think that we need the 3 stories because if we don't go up, it's going to go out. So you're going to have a bigger footprint. We're going to need more buildings. And later when we do grow even more businesses will come back as we have the staff to staff. We don't currently now. So I think that the idea of this 3 stories is a great idea because if we don't get the grant, it's just going to set us back that much further. Like I said, I own 2 businesses. We do somewhat have staff, but it is hard to find because there's nobody here. People are jumping job to job to find the best one, but there is no best one. It is what it is, what we got. And I currently have owned 2 properties, one inside town, one outside of town. Living in town, and I've rented space in that house myself, and these people can't afford what is out there. So the low income tax or the low housing is a great idea because these people can't afford it. I'm one of those people. It's really hard. When I first came into the valley back then, I bought a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom, 6-acre home for $84,000. That's unheard of right now. Totally unheard of. That same property right now will go for almost $500,000. That's insane. How are people who are serving all of us in these restaurants supposed to afford anything close to that? It's impossible. So I honestly think that this is the answer to fix that problem. And if we don't do anything about it and we keep staying where we've been and trying to save this great community, I think we're overly being protective of it because things are shutting down. Restaurants are shutting down. We have to do something. So all I ask is that you take a close look at this, really think about it before you just cut it off. Like I said, to get this grant, it looks better that we're going up because obviously Caleb has done his homework on it. And like I said, if we don't go up, we go out, which means that I currently live in an apartment right now because that's what I could afford. And I'm a 2-business owner in this valley. And right now it's a 2-story building that I'm in. And there's 6 places in that one building. And there's 3 buildings that are 2-story and 1 building that is 3-story. And that's still nowhere near what we need. I mean, that's 4 apartment buildings. Each 3 are 6 apartments that are, most of them are 1-bedroom apartments. That's not a family home. The other building is a 3-story building and that's 9. So if you're trying to get 80 people or even 40 families to move in, think about how many buildings that will take for 2 bedrooms, 3-bedroom apartments. It's just not possible. So all I ask is that you really think about and consider this and put yourself in the level of the people that need these apartments. You know, A lot of us are doing well, that's great. And we can have big homes. I had a big home. I had a 5-bedroom apartment or house that I could barely afford. Not only am I running 2 businesses, but I'm also a veteran that collects 100% disability from the veteran VA. And that's still not enough to survive in the economy that's going on globally, you know, in the United States. But it's even harder here because most of the community are fixed income people or retirees that have done well, which is great. But the people that haven't done so well and are still working are struggling to stay up here. And if those people don't make it, trust me, the people that have the money that can afford to live up here, they're not gonna have anybody to give them their coffee, give them fix their cars. You know, all of that stuff, all the things that we need in this community right now. Otherwise, we're gonna end up with more things like Dollar General and Family Dollar and Walmart and things like that. And I know nobody in the community wants that. You know, so that's my statement. Whatever you guys want to do with that, I just ask that you all serve the community for what's best.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening.
Okay.
Hello all, my name is Sven Livesey. I've lived here in the valley for 4 years, just bought a lot in town. The housing situation for teachers, first responders and service workers. If we follow like the Park City, Utah model where they are allowed to purchase the building that they live in or the house space. And they can't sell it for more, but they can still build equity so they can purchase something for themselves in the future when they're ready to move on. And the other thing I'd say to consider is consider commercial space on the first floor facing the highway and have residential on the second floor. If there's a third floor.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good idea. Those things have been discussed.
Yeah, I don't know, I'm saying more.
My comments are. Please state your name. Nadine Peterson. Nadine, thank you. It looks like you're working on changing the zone. Is that what you're going to do? Are you?
Once, in just one part of town.
Okay. And there was comments about the sewage treatment plant. I think that needs to be updated before this is implemented with the grants. And are we looking to bus in illegals to boost our economy? And who stands to benefit from this? Do any board members stand to benefit from this? So there would be people making money at the expense of our quality of life. If this does go in, there are many taxpayer expenses, current and future, and we're talking about changing this town's identity. Our governor recently made a law that there is now to be no limit on the number of people that can live in one house. They do not have to be related. So if we build these low-income housing units, we don't know how many people are actually going to be living there. So I think this is something that needs to be talked about in depth before and with lots of community input before any change to zoning or getting a grant, because with a grant, there are shoestrings. Look what a grant did to our school. Thank you.
I'd like to state, ready on my for the record. She did mention the sewage treatment. Like I said before, if you just take Shadow Ridge for an example, people had and have had sewage, water taps on that lot for forever, but have not built on it, right? Until now. So that's one good example. So if the, town with the help of the Department of Local Affairs does put this grant in and could get this grant and people start buying these taps, it does not mean, right, automatically that these are going to be lived in, meaning that money will be accumulated for Round Mountain before these houses are built. So that's on the sewage treatment. And the second off, I don't want to speak for the board, but as far as my opinion, no, on the benefit of illegals, this is not to benefit illegals. This is purely to benefit the citizens of West Cliff. Thank you. Community, thank you.
Hello, my name is Mark Mittendorf. I've lived here for 2 years. I live in Shadow Ridge, and we're, there's an effort to rezone lots in that subdivision at this time too. So this is a little curious that this is also going on now. I guess the one thing I would like to ask the Planning Commission to consider is, if I understand this correctly, the most successful criteria for obtaining this grant is density. And I guess I have to ask myself to myself, why is the funding agency pushing that agenda? I don't know who the funding agency is. Is it state or federal?
Local Affairs.
So that's state?
Yes.
And so are there other criteria that will help you be successful in obtaining the grant that's not simply high density? And really, is high density housing in the best interest of West Cliff? I think fundamentally, that's the issue that you guys really need to answer. Thank you.
Thank you.
If I may address that as well, for the record. He mentioned, I'll wait for that door to close. You mentioned Shadow Ridge rezoning. That rezoning effort is through a private individual and not through the town. The criteria for this grant, if you would like to see the criteria, on the town, I just talked to the board yesterday about the things needed for this grant to get done. So the workshop yesterday should have that in there. But if you want to Google it, you should Google Energy and Mineral Impact Advisory Fund, More Housing Now, Best Practices. And it has land use strategies and check boxes, multiple kinds. And if you'd like to know what the town is doing to the different angles that the town is trying to attack and what I've suggested for the trustees, it will be in those minutes from yesterday's meeting. Thank you.
I think there's still a lot of people trying to get in on it.
State your name.
Hi, my name is Audrey Glushka. And I would just like to say that I really think we should first proceed with the needs assessment because our summer employment needs are very different from our winter needs. We are not a Salida, we are not a Breckenridge, we're a summer destination at the moment. So I think we're jumping the gun. I would also like to see a DOLA rep here because it just seems to me that a lot of the details are a little nebulous. And I would like to hear from DOLA exactly what other restrictions would accompany that grant. And Bob, you said too, the future is coming, but we do have a say in our direction. Thank you.
Clarification, DOLA's administrator of this money. What drives the requirements is our state legislature.
People trying to get in on the Zoom, you can't get in.
I don't know what the problem is. There's several people who are on Zoom and then several that can't get on, so I'm not exactly sure what's going on with that. But we do have the recording and I think we can post it or disseminate it afterwards.
Sorry about
That's
that. State your name.
My name is Michael Barwick. I am a business owner in town and a resident of Custer County for almost 10 years now. As one of the remaining, restaurant owners, it is very difficult to hire and maintain talented individuals to work with the high price of everything. One of the biggest issues we have is the employees just cannot afford to live anywhere in town. I have people that are traveling 30, 40 miles down dirt roads, living in trailers off grid. And the fuel back and forth, the time back and forth. They work for a couple of weeks, realize they just can't afford to do it. And I've lost a lot of talent to down the hill. It's getting harder and harder to run a business without staff. As one of the remaining restaurants open here in town, we're getting inundated with tourists, large crowds coming in, and we're not serving the community by not having enough staff to properly serve those customers. So just, I don't know a whole lot of the height restrictions or the size and multifamily details of this, but just as a business owner, it's really hard. I can't afford to keep paying my people more money so they can afford to live in town, because that directly goes to higher prices, which the tourists will pay, but then also all the locals are going to be expected to pay. And then I'm laying off people in the wintertime because I can't afford to keep them on. So I don't know if that helps, but that's just from one business perspective.
That's kind of what we're trying to address, sir, is that cycle. And so that's what this is basically all about, is to people can afford to live here and you can sustain your business 12 months a year.
Thank you for hearing me. Have a great night.
Thank you.
You said you're talking to people that can't get in on Zoom. I don't know if you're able to call them, and if they have a comment and you'd like to say it for them, that would be fine. Do that. Okay.
Hi, I'm Paul Voldesong. I live in, Boneyard Park. And yes, I am running for commissioner. You might recognize my name. The people that have talked to me prior to this have a few things that want to be brought up, and I told them that I would bring up before you guys. So here they are. Are the grant conditions, are there strings attached? Like hidden bus loads like you already heard about? Is there any conditions in that that are going to just be busted in?
I want to actually elaborate on that. No, Denver OEM actually said that he would not just bust out illegal immigrants to communities, regardless if they've shown themselves as sanctuary city or not.
Right, and I know about the commissioners making it a non-sanctuary, so I know about that, and I've explained that to them. My condition that I asked myself is how's it gonna affect dark skies? You have a poster right there. The concentration of all these lights, porch lights, parking lights, is it going to affect the western part of the town? That would be my number one question.
I can answer that question as well. No, yeah, I don't think it will affect. There will be obviously more lights, but those lights would have restrictions and to be dark sky compliant.
That was my question. And then my other question is that do the developers have a condition in their grants that 3-story minimum? Because I heard 3 stories back and forth many times. I just wanted to know if that is a condition of the certain grant, or is that just something that we're targeting?
No, it's just a target that is frankly outside the box that could look more appealing to the grant.
I didn't hear the number of attendants. If there is a 3-story or a 2-story, or if we went with a single dwelling, is there set amounts of residents that will be in there?
That would, I apologize for speaking, but I think that'd be up to the whoever built it, really.
Right, and I think it would depend, I mean, if, say, a developer wanted to build apartments, you know, that would be in their lease, how many people would be allowed to live in, say, a 2-bedroom apartment or a 1-bedroom apartment.
And my question is that once the developer, once we say that the land's available, we've made the infrastructure and everything, is there what's the best way to say this? Is there a grant that we can say, okay, can we see the grant prior to them coming in? The conditions of the grant that they're asking, they're the ones that are asking for the grant, is the developer, correct?
No, we're asking for the grant because the town of West Cliff would be asking for the grant so we could improve the infrastructure out there.
Okay.
And then what the town would do with the land that they own, that's kind of still being discussed, like, would they
We
put it
lost
up for
that
sale
control.
or
And I
would
had
they?
my neighbor sitting out there said, what happens then? I'll find it.
So right now, the town is needing to rezone that ground to multifamily so that they can apply for this grant, which would then, the money would be used to help increase or update, add infrastructure to that ground out there.
So that's all I have. Do you have any questions for me?
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Just information.
Thanks, guys.
Does anybody else have out there wants to talk? That's okay. So, what I was kind of making notes as people were talking, and what I'm hearing is, while there seems to be support for multi-family housing and that we do have a problem that we need to address. I'm hearing, and you guys tell me if I'm wrong, that we need to do a little more research on it and not jump the gun, that there are some want to read that fine print on the DOLA grant requirements.
Ms. Chairman, I'm sorry, I have one question that came in on Zoom.
Sure.
Do you want to hear it? Okay. It's from Kamaz, I don't know the real name. We have lots 6 through 14 in block 34. How does this affect us? I'm having difficulty identifying our property on these rough drawings. Yes, no water and sewer, so no way to develop.
So that is a question for you, side.
Well, how would it affect us? I mean, that's a broad question. You are in lots 34, so you would follow under, you're in block 34, so you would fall under the, if it is agreed upon, the 3-story multifamily area, you would get water and sewer infrastructure to your lot. And you just rezoning and you get water and sewer infrastructure. That's
You wouldn't correct it.
Yes, I will do it.
What did I say?
There'd be a line there, but a person still would have to pay for the
Thank
water
you.
and sewer tap.
I appreciate that. Yes, thank you for the clarification.
Melanie?
It's not.
You have the opportunity.
That's what I'm doing right now.
He can respond.
Yeah, I'm giving her Caleb's email
He
address.
doesn't have anything else to do, so.
Yeah, I got it. Exactly, so lazy.
So, so what? Well, so I'm just seeing that there are, and maybe there's some other things like the one Mr. Livesley talked about, the Park City model, and he mentioned maybe commercial on the first floor and then residential. I don't know what the Park City model is, but just that recommendation he made made me like very curious about it. And I'd like to know a little bit more about that, and maybe along, like what you're saying, thinking outside of the box, maybe we need to do that before we just blanket rezone it.
Just so you know, that's what our core commercial district is.
Yes. And I think it's a good model.
Yes, it's a great one. I mean, I live in one, so.
Right?
Well, have you been to Buena Vista?
Yeah.
To their little subdivision there, that it's all commercial on the bottom, everybody lives up top and they restrict cars driving in certain areas. They have like a playground in there for the kids to rock climb and stuff, and it's pretty cool.
So-
That's appealing.
Well, I wanna, if I can, there is a lot of things we can do with this. So, I mean, we can say right now, whether we pass it, if we want commercial on the bottom, or just, all residential. But what it will look like afterwards, we're just setting parameters, right? What it looks like afterwards will be a conversation between, the town and the developer, then. So a lot of things that can happen together.
So just as a
Yeah, Paul
comment,
has to, I just want the record state that Paul has to leave, so.
Excuse me.
Quorum, Melanie? Do we still have a quorum?
I think we're-
You give four, yes.
Yes, we do.
Is there a time limit or a time frame for the DOLA grant?
It is due probably December 1st, so we've got, I would like to request if, whenever we're done, that we schedule for the week of the 24th, which is 2 weeks after, for our next meeting.
The 24th of what?
Not next week, but the week after, if
July.
we're done with public comment, then I would like to schedule for the month of July again, but on the, not next week, but the week after, the 22nd to the 26th, those dates.
You're saying, tell me the day again?
Preferably, if everybody can make it, the 24th at 3 PM would be a good time.
That works.
I'm available.
John, Bob,
I'm checking. That works for me.
Just as a comment on that, mixed use. I think that would be a good place for that, because you could still have high density above. And make the town more desirable for additional businesses.
look pretty cool.
I agree. I think we should consider that as well. I want mixed commercial along with that.
Bob, does that time and date work for you?
Still waiting for this thing.
That will affect parking. You'll have to.
Oh, we'd have to, yeah, in the planning of it, we would have to address that.
Yeah,
as
I
well.
mean, just because it's like discussed, like, oh, we should look at that. Yes, there's all those things that have to be taken into consideration and talked about. It's not just okay, we're doing that. But I don't disagree with thinking outside the box for things, but I want to be respectful of the views and of the opinions of people that have been here for a long time or even not a long time, There's a lot to take into account.
Where does the water fit in? Yeah, because Twyla's really the only one that asked about that, in the water, in the sewer, and the moratorium on the taps, because I haven't been present for a lot of this. And now there's no moratorium, but will we
No, the
have,
moratorium has been relieved, effective the first year.
but will we be able to enact one of those again if need be when we are obligated to this grant, in some way? I mean,
We
is that
reopened
gonna?
the sale of tap fees. We have the plan. I would suggest third Thursday of every month.
Yeah,
Around
guys
that
need to
board.
start going to that one
And
too.
we would enjoy coming in live or typically, we used to get attendance when things were not being managed as well as we think we are now. But we do have plans and tap fees are open and like I say, the initiatives we've got now have all the current plans where I hate to say it, we can accommodate 3 times the population we've got in the district now, if we had to.
Yeah,
Which we're not looking to do.
But it doesn't.
I don't think there's just.
Well,
That's not what we're here for.
the thing
today.
If
We have
Round
capacity.
Mountain, just because we would get these lines extended, that does not mean that Round Mountain still can't put a moratorium on it.
Okay,
So-
I just.
They can do, we would just have lines out there, so when they lifted that, someone could do some building.
And in this planning, is this when you would address what kind of, what kind of density, a builder would put together, like Would you have any control over that? Like if they came to you and said, here's our plan and everybody.
That's
goes,
kind of
Tell
what
us
we
we
were trying to,
Yeah.
we started talking about, and that, I believe that's what we will be talking about on the 20, whatever the date is. To address those things, and we started talking about that, but then there were so many people here, it really was a good idea to get people's opinions this go around.
There is a section on building review, page 39 and 112 of the packet. Number 4, it does mention building review, so it's building review process.
So you have some kind of, say, even though it's not, even though if you sold it.
On the town lot specifically, we definitely do.
Absolutely.
On the other lots, it's really more up to the developer, though it's still planning commission territory to say, no, you can't put up a 600 unit.
Yeah.
I mean, that's beyond an exaggeration.
Zoning comes in.
Yes, that's where, so, yes. So I mean, that is within our purview, but specifically over the town lots, absolutely, 100%. We will dictate that before we sell it, or whatever mechanism we choose best fits the town's needs.
Yes, I have a question on the filing out there. The original filing, those lots. Does your change include all those lots in that subdivision?
Go ahead.
The original filing you're speaking of, second and third,
In other
Third
words, you're
Street.
just gonna rezone the lots that the town owns.
No, this would be for all 6 blocks.
So you're gonna do all those.
All 6
those
blocks,
lots.
correct.
They're gonna change the zoning.
Plus the town owns, yes.
That's what.
Thank you. Proposed.
Why can't you do just the ones that the town owns?
So that's
That's what I would recommend.
I brought that up yesterday as well.
Because there's other people in there, that own those lots in there. You might want to put a single family home.
You can't, there's no utility. The thing that this plan brings to it, it makes those others marketable and developed. Usable, because without water and sanitation, that's why it's set like that for 100
You wouldn't
years.
bring it in there if a guy wanted to build a house?
You can't afford it. The economies of scale to bring it in.
That's what they said about Kemper subdivision, but they did that.
Well,
We're talking about $1.5 million just to bring the mains services there.
then you have the taps.
There is always the thought that if we did just rezone the town lots and we brought the water and sewer to there, if someone down at the end wanted water and sewer down there, it would be their responsibility.
But it hasn't.
Extend that.
Down there.
Respectfully, Mr. Chairman, that's the premise of it. And again, the town can, if the town wants, we could just do our lots, not do the rest, but for this grant, right? Not put the infrastructure for the rest of these lots, but that's the premise of this grant is doing it for everybody because it has not been done before. And therefore, I firmly do believe it has not been done, or will not be done. So that's my opinion.
Have those people that own lots out there been mailed a letter and
They all
so
got the
they're aware
letter,
of what's going
yes.
on?
Oh, yeah.
So really the question in that vein that needs to be asked, and maybe some of them were at this meeting earlier and they had to leave, I don't know. What we need to know is the people that own out there, not the town lots, but who own out there.
Right,
Do they want their ground changed to multifamily?
right.
In exchange for.
In exchange for water and sewer. I mean, that's kind of the trade-off. Otherwise,
Yes.
we could get the grant and just take it right to where our town lots are. And then if they wanted water and sewer and they live way far down, then it would be on them to have to pay to get that extended.
Yeah, but you're only gonna extend that to yours anyway, right?
No, if what he's talking about, if that whole area out there were to change zone, then it would extend to all of it.
And also,
And it makes your grant request a whole lot more marketable.
Right.
It would extend to everybody.
Exactly.
Right. If with that multifamily zone, but
Right.
if people that own out there are against rezoning their own lots out there, then we would need to go back and look at, okay, we're just gonna ask to go to our lots.
But if we only go to ask to our lots, chances are DOLA saying, yeah, that's just not enough.
Right.
It's not worth it.
Enough bang for the buck.
Yeah.
It's a question that needs to be asked to the people that own out there, because asking them to go from single family to multifamily, some people might consider that a big ask.
Really is.
All right, so we scheduled another meeting for the 24th. To really, we've gotten a lot of public opinion, public comment in here today, for sure, that can help us. Caleb, if you're able to go kind of find out the fine print of the grant, I mean, is it even possible to get the DOLA rep to come to our meeting?
That's exactly what I'll be calling and asking.
And maybe we have to change the day one day or later or earlier or something, because I think that would be big.
If she can attend, I will definitely plan the meeting around her schedule.
Charles, can you make the next meeting?
Right now, yeah.
Can you build a single family on a multifamily lot? Or do you have to have a variance?
It would not be advantageous to do that, really.
Advantageous, is it money wise or?
Well, you would not have, if you put a single family house in a complex of multifamily, you're not very marketable.
So let me ask you something, if they're putting duplexes and triplexes and all of that, how are you gonna, what size of tap are you gonna run to that? How are you gonna regulate the taps? Is 1 3/4 inch tap gonna run 3 stories?
When you look,
So you're gonna do an 1.5 inch tap, or what would you? What was the cost of that?
If I may, I am currently working to try to get Round Mountain Board and the town board together to start to negotiate as far as for the affordable homes, deed restricted houses, working on different tap prices, but that's yet to be seen.
But
These
we
be
would
special
just,
tap prices that other people couldn't get, or?
For deed restricted properties.
I'll put it this way, precedence wise, I was on the county attainable housing board from the inception until about within the last year. And I resigned from that for various reasons. We have, there's 2 of us that are on the Round Mountain Board that were on the county's attainable housing. So we had, our mixed feelings. We asked for variance to the Round Mountain Board for workforce housing. And there was policies of Round Mountain to not vary from that. We have, and putting my Round Mountain hat on, we've got a business responsibility to be responsible.
The taxpayers in the district, and
Yeah.
the district owner, yes.
And we were created by the 2 towns 18 years ago to manage that. So we've got to look principally at what the requirements of the towns are and what it means to keep Round Mountain viable. And I mean, we've been trying to, and part of the deal is all of us that have lived here very long at all know there's a lot of good old boy deals that have labored all of us with situations. And that's what Round Mountain is trying, because whether it's a leak in the ground or whatever, everything we do typically hits us with something, agreement that was made umpteen years ago. And we tried to get.
But with these extra taps and all of that going on out there, what would happen if it was a dry year and Round Mountain was all of a sudden out of priority from the Johnson place? So then you're purchasing water from Upper Ark, or are you buying replacement water, and how's that coming?
We're already getting funding to set a reservoir.
Yeah, I know, my
I
cousin's.
think that this is sort of out of the view of changing the zoning, which is what we
But as
have to discuss.
as a property owner
But
in this area, one thing I was concerned, and he answered the question, are you obligating me with anything that's financial? And I've got 7 lots in block 20. And as long as it The only restriction it's got that says that I can't do single family, and if I sell it, it's gotta go to multifamily. And that doesn't bother me, and it makes, I can tell you a story.
That
on
doesn't
why
that
I-
mean you also have to set out, because that's a conflict of interest, because you.
I will on the ground now. I'm sitting here as my property owner. Yeah.
Gentlemen.
So we need to, obviously, there's discussion that has to happen with Round Mountain and it has to happen with town because these are valid, concerns about is there enough water, is it, all of that is important, but, so we have a next meeting scheduled for 2 weeks. Is there anything else about this public comment, or, anything else about this public hearing that needs to be addressed, or can we go on to the item C, which should actually be item B?
Madam Chairman, I think there's a clarification and behind Caleb's thinking and such like that. And simplistically, the more units you can put on a lot means height or what construction cost per unit is less, and you can rent smaller and less things less expensively. And that's a reason for, notwithstanding viewpoint and all that, that's the reason for an argument of a 2 or a 3-story is that the economies ultimately are beneficial towards getting less expensive housing.
Thank you.
Yeah, and again, we are having another meeting in 2 weeks, so if anybody can't come to the meeting or doesn't want to come to the meeting, but they want to send an email with their questions and concerns, you send that to Caleb. Also, all of the board emails are listed on the website. You can email any of us as well.
Is there a chance that we could have a meeting with just the owners? And it will have to include Zoom as well, because there's a lot of out-of-town owners, but owners.
Well, as far as the town goes, our meetings are all open. So, we can't just say this, we're just having a meeting for the property owner. Now, I would think that if you know the property owners out there and maybe you guys want to kind of get together and talk, I don't know, write something up, give your opinions and have one person kind of come as a representative of that group, you could definitely do that. But anything we do here is an open meeting, follow the
By law.
I think we need to, who would want this and who would not want this.
Right.
As property owners.
Right, and I think that's very important, because when we're talking about just wanting to do something with the town lots that are there, that's very different than talking about that entire whatever.
But you're saying that's our responsibility to get that together and present that to you.
It's not necessarily your responsibility, but it would be very helpful. 'Cause yes, am I gonna recommend, and he's not gonna like it, that Caleb make sure that we have something in writing from all the people that own out there? Yeah, but I'm one person and the rest of the board could say, no, you're crazy, we don't think he needs to do that, and it's done. So the more information that can be brought to us, the better it is.
And what basically she's saying is we can't restrict you guys from having your own meeting. We just can't have our town meeting or our planning commission meeting for the landowners only, because we have to broadcast it. We have to make it open to the public in general.
Anything else about this?
How do you guarantee that it's gonna be affordable for seasonal employees? I know density plays a factor into what, how a building is priced, a rental, but do you have any say in, can you control, make a statement like this is the parameters for what affordable housing is in our town?
Yes, I'd like to quickly answer that as well. Item C, that's what the housing needs assessment is for. Generally, the developer will go off housing needs assessment. Controlling prices, that's what a deed restriction will be about. So it is covered.
To the developer.
Thank you.
Yes, they have to comply with
The
that.
bad thing is that this board and the current town boards would set criteria
Exactly.
that a couple of elections now, take it back, change it. So,
You always gotta pay, there's always that risk, and that's why.
and when you talk about guarantees.
Well, I mean, yeah, there's affordable housing in Salida, but people still can't afford to live there.
And it's not just a problem in this part of Colorado, it's everywhere. So do we want to go to item C, or what should be item B? Oh, I guess it was C.
Can we let everybody know that we are changing to a different master plan?
So we are, just to clarify really quick, we are having another meeting with, which hopefully we'll have more answers. Hopefully we'll have the DOLA rep here in 2 weeks. And so for that reason, we are closing this public hearing and we will move on to the next item on our agenda, which is consideration of recommending to the Board of Trustees to adopt the updated master plan.
The meeting on the 24th.
Yes, 3 o'clock. 3 o'clock.
So you're on the
24th and 25th.
What's your
Thank you,
name?
everyone.
Ask your chairman, she knows. Chairperson.
I'm sorry.
You know, if you stay for the burden.
They said they can stay.
He wants to stay.
If you're a surveyor, you take a survey.
Okay, so the next item is consideration of recommending to the Board of Trustees to adopt the updated master plan. Does anyone want to have any discussion or want to make a motion?
Run the organization's finances. So we had 15 at least. I think we came up with a pretty darn good master plan. So I moved this our proposed master plan changes to the Board of Trustees.
Motion is made and second that we consider recommending the changes. Consider recommending that the trustees adopt the updated master plan. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The motion carries. Do we have any more public comment from anyone? I don't know if people are coming in or
I'm aware of at least 3 houses the last one was the first one that gave numbers on what the requirements.
Entrances and exits.
I would specify, that made it more valuable than any of the previous, because the other reports just told us things that we all knew. To quantify and say that we needed 35 houses right now and projected over the next 3 to 5 years.
It's already showing the light pollution.
Gave a degree of reality that,
absolutely,
that we've never seen before.
I know there's people against dark skies, but I love the dark skies.
We've got the same problem that other guys, but I would suggest, from my perspective, we need houses before we need businesses, because we, from an economic development standpoint, I look at reports coming out of the state on businesses that are looking for locations. Most of them, we, just because of our size, we have no way of being competitive. But even for the small businesses, if you don't have housing, and it's almost
Get on the waiting list.
an RFP.
Price.
3 or 4 years ago, we have one response.
Price.
You
So
didn't
these are.
involve businesses having to support housing, bringing the jobs. And that works some places for.
5 years. Yeah, it's not.
But it's,
Because in 5 years.
it's like the meeting we were in this morning. Part of it, I'm glad to see Westcliff looking, trying to develop what.
Well, it's set up as a purchase, yes.
See, there's three things that Custer County needs to support ongoing need. It's broadband, it's recruiter, water and wastewater, and I think Round Mountain, I think we've got a handle on that. And we've got support clear up to the state level. And housing. So, it's key.
Another public comment or you just? Okay. Yes, it's public comments, okay.
How long have you been working on the master plan?
Right before that, beginning of last year. Yeah, beginning of 2022.
She needs a place, but at the same time, she doesn't have the money to.
Notify the public that there is master plan.
Every workshop is. We've got plenty of independent workshops separate from official meetings.
And anything that the town, any committee that the town is hosting per se, has to be posted. And it's on our website, and then we have official posting. I think the grocery and the corporate out here, and I don't remember what the other. And so all of those meetings are posted, they're posted in the paper, and we have to give at least certain amount of time notice, so it's not just like, hey, you wanna meet this afternoon? You can't do that.
Gotta get a hold of that. Yeah, I have a way for.
Look under the packet, when you see packet for planning commission and trustees, that shows you what same thing we're doing. So the whole thing is there, it's, how many pages? 180.
117 days.
A lot of pages. But
Part of that too is that we're not even allowed to discuss this outside meeting.
I was on.
So we can't have a secret.
Yeah.
The meeting.
Goings on.
Either.
We want.
Any other discussion?
Yeah.
You understand?
Yeah.
Understand this, you go up and look it up.
And so the master plan, does that have any connection to the rezoning?
Acrylic triangle.
That's right.
Well, because in the master plan, it talks about like the need for, it covers everything that could possibly be related to town, so the need for affordable housing, the need for businesses, viable businesses. All of this is in the master plan, and then I call it a living document because we do update it every few years as our needs change, so.
This rezoning is kind of a fallout of the master plan. It's not part of the master plan. It's like, this is what we need, and therefore Caleb has done the footwork, knowing what we need. So it's.
The master plan is a guideline. It has no effect in law or in zoning. This is a direction to take the town to people.
Any other public comment or discussions?
I move that we close the adjourned meeting.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor?
Thank you, Mayor.
Aye.
Charles.
Opposed? I just want to hang out with you all night.
Christie, you forgot one major thing, we're storage. That's the housing.
We ship them in the business, we keep them in the house, and we just stack them.
Citizens.
That wasn't on the agenda.
Well, you can put it on there, you can add that.
Well,
I think we
John's doing
will.
a good job.
Yeah.
What, I read.
Oh, you're vegetarian, so stuffed
Earlier, but-
stuffed
I guess we get to decide on that
sides of vegetarian.
next meeting.
I think that's a good, I think we should have it